Celebrate the 35th anniversary of Hayao Miyazaki's Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. Catch the second title of Studio Ghibli's Fest 2019 for a 2-day only event on May 20th and 21st. Brought to you by GKIDS and Fathom Events. 1,000 years after the destruction of civilization, warring human factions survive in a poisonous world swarming with gigantic insects. Among them is Princess Nausicaä, who fights to restore balance between humans and nature. If you are interested in tickets, they are already available on GhibliFest.com, so get your tickets now while they last. Well, without further ado, let's get on with the episode. Hello there, animation fans. Thank you for tuning in to the AFA podcast, the official podcast for animationforadults.com. My name is Rachel, and joining me today is one of the original podcasters that was right with us there from the beginning. It is the beautiful, the lovely Yvonne.
Hello.
Hello.
So nice to be here.
It's been a little while since you've had a chance to join us, but I'm so glad you have a chance to come back. I understand you've been very busy of late. Annie's been keeping you very busy on top of some other things, which you're here to talk about with us today.
That's right. Yeah, we have many things in the works. We are going to Cannes for our second Annie Cannes program. We have an animation program, the Animation Nights New York 2019 Cannes program. It's a terrific lineup of films, and we're going to be in Cannes with, I think, about 25 animators and producers from all around the world. So yeah, I know. And we'll have Annie Cannes program is really a second opportunity for our filmmakers. So we curate a program of films that qualify for that program, and then we work with the Marché and the Short Film Corner and present a market screening and some mixer events, and the Short Film Corner has some terrific mixer events as well. And we're just trying to create opportunity and put together an additional showcase. And it's exciting. It's a lot. And then in the meantime, I'm kind of working on that from Tribeca, from the Tribeca Film Festival. So I was there since Thursday, representing Animation for Adults and Animation New York.
Represent!
That's right. So I've checked out a good bit of the immersive content. There's plenty more to see for me starting tomorrow morning. Mm-hmm. Then we have plenty going on with Animation Nights New York. We're up to screening 44.
Screening 44. Yeah, that's quite a bit. You're almost near that's 6 more, and you're gonna hit the 50 mark.
I know. I don't know. We'll have to do something special for that.
Absolutely. And then of course there's Best of Fest, which I understand is still in the works for this year, but you're
that's right. Yeah, that'll be October. I believe it'll be October 5th and 6th tentatively. Definitely early October though. We're talking to folks at the South Street Seaport again, or Pier 17 area, I suppose you could call it, but Seaport District. We might be back at 180 Maiden Lane again this year, but we're confirming all that now.
Okay.
But
still in the works at the moment.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. So we're gonna have an XR showcase and panels, industry events, cover subjects on animation and pipeline, and have some Annie exchange programs there as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all coming together. Yeah, we have our judges already tentatively penciled in, lined up. Yeah, who said yes from last year. So we should have films ready for them too.
Fantastic.
Yeah, really exciting.
Yeah. I mean, particularly about the whole thing with the Cannes, going back to Cannes. It's really super, super cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's something. First of all, it's a beautiful place. It's amazing to be in the south of France, for one. And there's something about that environment that I don't know. There is just, Cannes, I think, doubles in size during that festival, and there's just a lot of different kinds of people, a lot of representation from different companies, and a lot of people there. It's a market, really, you know, and we're bringing our pure little festival to this ocean of market at Cannes. And the reason that we do that is that we really just, you know, like I said, want to create opportunity for our filmmakers. So
that's Annie's mission, is it not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'd say we curate and connect. So, you know, we're curating these programs of animation, and animation, as you all know, can be utilized in all kinds of different projects. So we're via Annie Exchange, we connect animation talent to XR projects and traditional projects, and that's something that really the Annie Can program is kind of an extension of. So, you know, we're really, that's kind of the main goal. And the thing is, it makes sense to be, you know, outside of the U.S. in some ways for something like this, because about 80% of the films that we show are from outside of the U.S. So
yes,
you know, it really, you know, it's an opportunity for some of our filmmakers to come together. So we have films from Iran, we have a film from Kenya,
cool,
China and UK. It's a really very diverse group. Last I looked at the numbers, I think we have pretty 50-50 split of women directors and producers that'll be attending. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and you know, it's so funny. I talked about this a lot in the last couple days, but you know, okay, so we've been around for 4 seasons now, and there's, I don't think it's by accident. We sort of create this level playing field by focusing on quality and quality projects and quality content. And there seems to be, from that, what I seem to be noticing, what I'm learning is that if you create this level playing field, like the talent is there. You know what I mean? Like there are definitely plenty of situations where the playing field is not level, and you need tools, and people need to be, you know, helped and you know, sort of given more advantage. But with something like this, I mean, what I'm seeing is that, you know, there are lots of female animators, and there are a lot of really talented animators and developers and producers from all around the world. And you know, it's reflected in a lot of our programming, is what I mean to say, and it's not something that we're trying to do, and I find that very uplifting and exciting.
Yeah, that if we're all in a level playing field, really, if you're looking for someone to help you animate your project, or at least, you know, give you a certain perspective on a project, all you really need to go is look, pick and choose what suits your needs better, really.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, I don't know. That part's very exciting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the program for sure, and also looking forward to working a little bit more in the sort of XR arena there as well. We'll see.
Yeah, talk a little about that. I know because you've are there currently have been XR and VR showcases that you've been able to experience at Tribeca too, because I know that's also something that's been going on.
Yeah, I've seen many pieces during the press day on Thursday. I saw so far, I saw some really terrific pieces. There's a lot of animated content, or content that has animated portions of it contain animation. And there's some 360 pieces. Right now, Tribeca is set up similarly to the way they've had it set up in the past. They have a 360 360 video theater, I guess you'd call it. Basically what it is, Cannes did the same thing last year. There are a bunch of different chairs, and then all of the experiences are kind of start at the same time.
Okay.
So everyone is experiencing the 360 pieces at the same time. And the way they did it this year is they're sort of shown in curated blocks of 3. I was lucky in that I actually wasn't really able to put that together until I went into the space and was like, oh, we can't just sort of pick and choose or sort through or see, you know, like a larger block and see what we want. Or select what we want to see specifically. But it was the block I experienced was the one I wanted to see anyway. It contained one of the animated pieces called Space Buddies. So that was great to timing wise. So there's that, and then you have the virtual immersive arcade, which is really contains a lot of room scale pieces and some AR, and that's in the main area, same as last year. You know, you basically go in, find your block of time if you're buying tickets, walk in, sign up for the pieces that you really want to see, and then you have about a 3-hour time block to experience those pieces. The length of the pieces really varies, so you have to be kind of strategic about what you sign up for, and sometimes it's a little bit of the roll of the dice, but things I think went fairly smoothly, so far as I could tell, on the sort of public side of things. It seemed pretty calm, calmer than it did in previous years, at least in my opinion.
Okay.
But I was able to see a number of different things. Wolves in the Walls is back.
That looked really cool.
Yeah, it's really terrific. So I haven't seen this chapter yet. It's on my list. I am, they do a terrific job with animation, and the character that's part of the piece as, AI component and kind of responds to the user. I'll be able to say a little bit more about it as I see the next this chapter.
Okay.
But I did see this at Cannes last year. I believe it was at Cannes last year. But I think they do a terrific job with environment and animation, so I'm excited to see that. I got to check out a piece called Where There's Smoke by Lance Wheeler, and that was really, it was in a space that was on Canal Street, sort of away from the hub and that virtual immersive arcade space. It was a very personal piece by the director. I believe it was about 16 years in the making. It told a very personal story. You go in with 3 other people and experience the piece together. And it had a lot of I wasn't sure what to expect when I went into the piece. I had seen Lance speak on a panel about immersive storytelling. It was very touching. It was very touching. But you sort of work together and then hear the story. I'm not sure how detailed I should get.
Well, I know that I have the basic description of the piece here that's on the Tribeca Film Festival website. Let me see. If you mind, if I go ahead and read.
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Where There's Smoke mixes documentary, immersive theater, and an escape room to explore memory and loss. Set within the afterlife of a blaze, participants work to determine the cause of a tragic fire by sifting through the charred remains. This 2-part experience begins, in the virtual arcade, blah, 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 blah.
But that's pretty specific.
Yeah, it is very specific. So that sounds like a very... Wow. It's like both. So documentary, theater, escape room. That's
100%. Yeah. So there's like a sort of a puzzle. You interact with objects in the room. And what's cool about that, what I find really interesting is that it keeps you focused. So it keeps you focused. I mean, the main intention is to get you like focused on the story. So you have, it becomes then an augmented reality piece, because you are, instead of just watching the short film about the same subject, you walk into a room and the smell of fire is there, burnt objects, the burnt room, the sense of loss and disaster is there. You're going around actively, working together to pick out objects from the room. And so, because there's an element of escape room, I mean, there's really like kind of one main puzzle, but it's more of it's kind of like you know, like Life is Strange or something, where it's more of like an interactive movie. You know what I mean? And the puzzles
Okay,
aren't
yeah.
the puzzles aren't necessarily there to stump you. They're there to engage you and give you a through line through the narrative, and it's very effective. It's very effective. Um,
Sounds intense too. It's
It
like
was intense. I mean, honestly, from a personal perspective, I feel like in some ways I'm still kind of digesting the piece because it hit a little too close to home,
oh
you
boy.
know. And I don't know if it was, you know, I don't for you know those reasons are my own, but I feel like I'm not because it was such a personal piece, and yeah, I feel like I'm sort of still getting through it in some ways. It's
Yeah,
hard to be objective.
yeah, I get you. I mean, that's the one thing that you always have to think about when you're experiencing art for the first time is that it could potentially hit you in a heavy way,
Yeah.
depending on what you're going into. But you're still glad you saw it.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And I love those kinds of interactive pieces. They really are yeah, I love those. And I love escape rooms too. Although I've never been to one in person yet. I've only done
Oh,
sort of VR versions. But those are my favorite games in VR as well, are either the sandbox, you know, huge expansive world games like Fallout, or escape rooms. I think those work really well in VR.
absolutely.
You know,
Yes, they do.
to your face, yeah. They're super clear. Yeah, I love those a lot.
Not sure if I want mutants running up at me in my face, but that's just my personal.
The other piece that I saw that really was outstanding to me was or another one that was on my sort of top of my list so far was Gymnasia. So that was really terrific. Yeah, Felix and Paul Studios, who have done a ton of work. And more recently in VR, they did the I Love Dogs VR experience for the film.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, and so that was terrific. And they had the directors were there. They had a whole on the first day, the press day, which was pretty terrific. But it had to me the sort of it was reminded me a little bit of like the brothers Quay. I'm sure I mispronounce that every single time I say it.
Okay.
Kind of really creepy. Creepy's lame way to describe it, but very effective. They're older dolls in stop motion, and older dolls whose faces aren't expressive, and there's such a sense of mystery with those objects.
Like it's a very unsettling tone.
Very unsettling. and there was a giant doll as well that was part of sort of an extension of the really, some of these are more exhibits than pieces or experiences to me. But there was an actor in the large life-size doll that rode around in a cart and had a projector. But it was a beautiful piece. The setup was really nice. You walked into a room that had sort of shadowed, projected shadows of children playing that sort of went around the room. There was music. There were music scores along the floor, or paper that you would walk on, and then sort of
wow.
There was a doll seated where the audience would sit. It was kind of like a waiting area that got you into the headspace before you put on the headset, and it was I thought very effective. Also, you couldn't really tell where the projector was, so that was kind of neat. Like it just added the sense of mystery, I thought, and the piece itself was really well. The animation was beautiful, and you know, I always want to highlight those pieces where the animation is stellar, because I think it's so very important in VR, and so they always do that. They really,
well, that's part of the appeal. I mean, not only are experiencing it's one thing to experience something like you do in VR, but it makes it all the more invested. You know, it's easier for you to get invested when there's a lot of quality work put into it, especially in making things move and feel lifelike.
That's right. And there were a lot of elements within the piece that they were great at sort of guiding you to view what they wanted you to see. And all in all, I liked the piece. It was there were some people that it was a little creepy, I suppose, but it was a beautiful piece. It looked really good. And then another highlight for me was ayahuasca. So ayahuasca and Seven Lives I thought were both really terrific. And they have the same, they had the same director. So Jan Conan. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not saying him out loud. But he was the project creator for both pieces. Seven Lives also included Sabrina Calvo and Charles Ayat. I'm probably slaughtering his name too. But both of those pieces I thought were stellar and real works of art. Seven Lives struck me because of the use of the gaze of the user as a vehicle to sort of move forward within the piece. I thought it was very successful. You move through the experience of 7 different lives that sort of surround this catastrophic event.
Oh, wow.
There was something just about the way, really the use of the gaze that and the music and the dialogue. I felt that, you see a lot of pieces that kind of feel a little bit more like demos, and that's, I think that's fine. It's just that I really felt after experiencing that piece, there were some real art pieces out there, and there are a number of XR experiences at the Tribeca immersive arcade that had that quality of, I felt like, we're moving into art now. And so that was it was great. So I really loved that piece.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, a young girl jumps in from a subway train, and but it's not a gory type of thing. It's more of a sort of a spiritual kind of there's a ghost sort of ephemeral quality to the stories. You're kind of floating in and out of people's experiences. It makes you think about other people's lives, how we're interconnected, how we're everyone has their own sort of journey and path and position in the world.
Experimenting with empathy.
There is an element of empathy in that. You think of that interconnectedness. I wouldn't say that. Yeah, that's interesting. The empathy thing is interesting because I don't know really how. I don't know if that's the right word,
I understand
a lot, but it's interesting. But there was like an interconnectedness that really, that's what set that piece apart for me, I think, in some ways. It's like, it's interesting. I've seen a number of pieces where it's like, you experience it, you're so affected by the piece, but then it's like, why are you affected? Are you affected because you're just horrified? Are you affected because you've been scared half to death? Are you affected because the experience gives you PTSD light, and then you leave it and you have a white, your face is white because your blood is drained away and
Is it just the thrill of the scare that you?
Yeah, exactly. Is it like a jump scare for your lizard brain? Is it kicking your lizard brain? And is that it? I feel that art pieces have this other component, this other sort of thread material that connects us together, connects humanity together, that,
Mm-hmm.
that does something else, that it betters the world, or not, doesn't, it makes the world a better place because of that interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And sometimes you see these pieces that are just like, you feel manipulated afterwards. And,
Yeah.
you know, so it's interesting, you know, and so some of these pieces I thought were a little bit better about focusing on the larger message.
Good. Yeah. And when you basically, the way you were describing is, at least with this particular, The Seven Lives, is basically how this act of this girl throwing herself in front of a subway train, and it's more of the reactions and the people who saw what happened. So basically, my understanding of what it means is when I say empathy is basically the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and be able to walk. Like, what's that word? Like, I think this is if I'm quoting this right, it's from To Kill a Mockingbird, to get in someone else's shoes and walk a mile in them. Mm-hmm. It is kind of what my initial gut feeling is. I could be 100% wrong, and there is. And you know, that's the whole basic of human connection, of us wanting to connect with other people. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it ends up in a positive experience or even a negative experience, we still always seek out that connection.
Right. And yeah, and so in this case, it's like, well, I see you know, this trauma happens, and then, you know, what are the elements in my life that I can, what trauma have I experienced that then mm-hmm. I relate to, that I can, you know, like we have these different circumstances, but, you know, kind of a similar feeling that we can tap into and then relate to one another with. And that's what more about what that piece seemed to be about.
Mm-hmm. And you said a lot of other of the pieces, not necessarily this one, but some of them like it, really did a good job of doing, like, portraying stuff like that, or kind of catching that without really feeling like they were manipulating the audience to try and get a certain reaction. Like, okay, right. This is the part where you cry, or this is the part where you cheer. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you felt like a little bit less of a just benign floating entity, and you felt like you were maybe experiencing it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. In some of the more successful pieces. So ayahuasca was another piece that, you know, so ayahuasca was a representation of the director's experience on ayahuasca. Mm. And that was interesting because, you wondered, first of all, it was beautifully done.
May I interrupt just really quick?
Of course.
For someone who does not know what that word means, could you define that for me?
So ayahuasca, I have a limited knowledge of it myself, really, but it's a drug that gives you a trip, basically, like
okay.
Mushrooms would or acid would, but it's used as more of a spiritual type of trip. And it's got a reputation for helping people cope with PTSD and helping people cope with addiction.
Okay.
And, really alter their perspective after the event. So everyone's experience is different, and supposedly, you know, they sort of, it helps them maybe deal with past events or traumas. I don't know how much research has been done with regard to, like, the mechanism, but yeah, there's hallucination and it's like an inner journey.
Okay.
So this was a representation of the director's experience.
Interesting. So that's basically what he's crafted here, is his personal experience with this kind of, like, vision, as you could call.
Yes, that's right. And it's quite a long piece. What was the 12 minutes. Okay, well, it feels a little bit longer than that, but not in a bad way. And the set was really nice, or you go into a hut that's there, that is really well built, I thought, and well designed. You sit in this little hut by yourself on a rock, or actually you start standing. There's a shaman there who is, it's like a CG representation of the shaman, and you quote unquote, take the drug or whatever, sit down when he tells you to sit down. And then what's interesting is they also utilize the gaze of the user. And I thought it was, I don't have a ton of drug experience myself, but my small amount of experience that I've had, it seemed very similar in that there are sort of like almost waves or movements in the piece, and it gets more intense and then kind of is lessened, and then you sort of come back to reality. But what's interesting is in the very beginning, when the sort of visualizations start, you can, if you move around, you go sort of slowly. There's this really, really effective, calm transition back to the shaman character. So it's almost like you could, break out of the piece up until a certain point, and then, at least it seems to me that, it sort of moved and it sort of kicked in, and then you were sort of within the visualization, which was beautiful. I mean, there were sort of CG elements sort of moving, at you and toward you. At one point, I felt a little bit uncomfortable, but it wasn't because of the technology; it was the imagery, and. But it's not something that I was recognizing as disturbing. It just was part of the experience. So, and also at the very end, it made me wonder, what my experience would be on that.
I'm sure.
Because it makes you wonder. But there was just like layers and layers and layers and layers of imagery. It wasn't just like some sort of kaleidoscope of colors or wacky churning imagery.
Like pink elephants on parade kind of.
Yeah. That's something. But there was a ton of depth, and I felt you were really kind of transported to another sort of place for a little bit, and there was an element of interconnectivity, I thought, to that as well, which is related to patterns and movements and, life and death and perspective and, where we are in the universe and, ego and loss of ego and all that good stuff. There were all of that. There seemed to be like a theme in life and death. But really beautiful. It was a really beautiful piece. And, I enjoyed that one a lot. That was sort of on the top.
Okay. Gotcha.
Top of my list.
And this event is still ongoing. So are there any other pieces in particular you're still looking to go and try out, or do you feel like you've done all the ones that you really wanted to do?
I am looking forward to experiencing the Collider, hopefully tomorrow. We didn't even talk about Bonfire by Baobab. That has incredible animation in it. It was very definitely seemed to be aimed at a younger audience. But and it's so funny. It's so easy to say oh, it's so cute and adorable and fun. And I was laughing and it was great. And none of that would have been effective had the animation not been excellent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly.
There's seamless pieces where you're like, oh my God, it's so cute. And you're like, yeah, because the animation was awesome. But the interactivity was really terrific too. And honestly, it was just fun. It was just a fun time. It was a fun time.
Okay.
So, I recommend that one as well. Cave was there, which I've seen a number of times. The folks at Parallax and NYU Future Lab are always pushing boundaries, and that's a multi-user experience. But the technology for that is interesting, and I really look forward to seeing the pieces that come out of that organization. I really want to see the Doctor Who The Runway. I didn't get a chance to see that yet. That's
I was looking at the page here, and I was like, oh, wait, there's a Doctor Who thing in here.
Yeah, I know. And there was a TARDIS sort of sitting there as part of the, I eyed that early on. I'm like, ooh, I want to see this. So I want to see that. Common Ground, definitely want to see. Drop in the Ocean. Honestly, I just want to see everything.
As many things as you could possibly squeeze into the time that you have there.
Yeah, I think I should be all right. Hello is there. Pinta Studios, they did the Dreamcatcher.
Okay, that is. I'm slowly scrolling down to see if I can see it.
I haven't seen that yet either.
Yeah, listen, there's just so many things to choose from. Like, I'm still scrolling down. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah, Dreams of the Jaguar Daughter is a 360 piece. I want to see. Harmonia I haven't seen yet. I want to catch as many. Those are the three from the 360 library. But
this one sounds intense. Like this one just popped in my frame here. 12 Seconds of Gunfire, the true story of a school shooting. Like, that sounds horrifying.
Oh, yeah. That I have not seen yet either. What was the name of that one again?
Yeah, it's literally just 12 seconds. It's a long title. 12 Seconds of Gunfire, the true story of a school shooting.
Yeah, I have not seen that. Is it in the short film section or the virtual arcade?
I think it's in, let me keep going up. I think was it in the 360? Let me double check. Yeah, 2019 Cinema 360 features.
Gotcha. Oh, I see it. Right. Yeah, it looks like there's some quillustration there, but I'm not sure that that's true. That is on my list as well. Yeah, there's a lot to see. I'm glad I'm going back on Monday.
Mm-hmm. And stepping a little away from VR, I know there was a event that you that also happened in Tribeca that you were really excited to participate in, or you were involved in, and that was a particular panel that you had to go to. And if I recall correctly, the two main guests were the one, the only Guillermo del Toro and Alec Baldwin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So that was great. There was a talk between Guillermo del Toro and Alec Baldwin, like as you said, and those guys, I swear, they probably didn't prepare at all. They don't have to. Mm-hmm. And Guillermo del Toro is a teacher and has a ton of just gold. It was very inspirational, so inspirational. And Alec Baldwin is a consummate performer. It was just smooth as all hell. And immediately, Guillermo del Toro is just funny. So the two of them together, I mean, there were a couple things that happened that they were like bits, and I don't know if they were or not, but whatever, they worked super well.
I know that's why I love going to panels, especially like, say, if you go to like a basic anime con and you'll get certain voice actors together, or certain smaller celebrities together, and sometimes you'll just have it'll be half half informative and also half like comedy skit, like right there on stage or right by the desk.
Totally.
Like I recall there was a video I saw like a while back. I forget which con it was, but two voice actors, both two pretty famous, Steve Bloom, the famous Steve Bloom, and as well as Scott McNeil, were both in the same room together. And I was basically just watching a few clips from this panel and just like, man, this is basically a comedy show featuring these two guys. I swear.
Like, yeah, there was so much of that. I mean, it was so funny. And then, peppered in the comedy was, all these amazing notes, and yeah, I scribbled away during the whole panel. I mean, Guillermo del Toro talked about his past, how he he got into films, how he listened to a lot of radio novellas and made cassette tapes first. He also started a film festival in Guadalajara. It's 35 years now the festival's been going on. And
Wow.
he sort of did everything himself, including learning to run the projector, which was obviously very inspiring to hear. I was like, yeah.
You're not the only one.
It's so beautiful. Well, I mean, and this is a whole, I mean, something like a film festival is much easier to do now with digital files. I mean, they were projecting, projecting film.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like proper film negatives.
Yeah, and so he started a film school, and it's just always he just reads and reads and reads, and takes inspiration from painting and other art, and just works nonstop. I think they said he wrote like 28 screenplays, and he does a lot of co-writing of screenplays, and it was inspirational. They're also starting, this is an announcement that wasn't necessarily part of the panel, but it's something that was announced earlier. He's starting an animation studio as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is exciting. I think there were Animation for Adults did a piece on this announcement. I can't remember.
It's all right.
I thought so. Pinocchio?
It's been a while, so I'm like, I'm ready. I don't remember.
But anyway, he talked about his filmography a little bit, and his personal life, and he talked about living with his grandmother and that she exercised him twice. And there are tons of bits and pieces. He talked about how all his movies are about loving someone no matter what is main theme. He talked about this was funny and almost a kind of a bit, I swear. He talked about the other, and how he loves monsters because they represent the other, and also imperfection, and how there is a tyranny to perfection that none of us can live under, and the media does this thing where we're tries to make us strive for perfection that doesn't exist. And that monsters sort of represent the opposite of that. He said things are not black and white, we're polychrome. And Alec Baldwin says next beat is like, well, you talked to my wife about this, that I'm complicated and polychrome. And he got a laugh from the audience about that. And then the next thing you hear a phone ring. And Alec Baldwin reaches into his pocket and pulls out the phone and says, "Oh, hi, honey. I'm talking to 500 people. I'm on stage right now. Is everything okay?" Hands the phone to Guillermo del Toro, who says, your husband is polychrome." And he pulls all the money out of his pocket, gives it to Guillermo, who counts it and then gives it back and says, $212 or whatever. And he's like, I was hoping to get a producer part in your next project. I mean, goodness gracious. So, like that happened. It was just like, it was very funny, but they just really punctuated some terrific content, and he really talked about being true to your project, for one. If you're just push the budget, do the projects that don't do projects. Well, ideally he encourages people to create movies that wouldn't exist without you, that need you to do them, and not just do something. I mean, that's easy to say. We all do projects that we that maybe weren't necessarily initially our idea, but it's a beautiful way to sort of think about it. And it was, you left charged up and like ready to tackle your dream project,
Yeah.
But it was pretty great. What else did they touched on? yeah, filmmaking and art. His process, it was really very interesting. He invests a lot of his own personal time and energy and heart into each project. So and it really focuses on some of the details. He does a lot of storyboarding himself, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, and he said that he really utilizes the professional storyboards for budgeting and then really he said the real storyboards are his own like doodles and scribbles. So FYI, like pretty cool, you know what I mean? Like, he also said he goes to the set like an hour and a half before, you know, everyone else. He's like first one there, last one there. In part because he just wants to make sure he's the one that's able to find the best shots. He does, you know, multiple versions of you know, each storyboard and then edits from there. So he gets to, like he said, the meat and the gravy. Honestly, it seems like he approaches films like an animator.
He really
like
does.
You know, 80%, you know, rule is really, it was like right there, sort of running through his description, which was pretty cool. They talked about,
absolutely.
yeah, and then the other subject they kind of covered was that, you know, they talked about the relationship between directors and actors, and sort of saying that, you know, 50% of directing is casting, and he talks about, you know, writing pieces specific for specific actors, and that, you know, that another rule of thumb that he gave was that he thought, you know, direction should be under a minute, that actors want to know, in his experience, things to do and not things to think about. And that, you know, you have to utilize what people can give you. These are all good lessons for life as well. Ways, you know?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm envious, man. I wish I was there.
It was really great. Well, I have a long list of detailed notes that I'll be using for a little blurb write-up that obviously you'll have access to probably as soon as we're done talking. I'll make sure you're on this because I wrote it all down.
All right, excellent.
But it was great. Yeah, it was really great. Honestly, I was just like, the whole train ride home, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm all charged up. Like, just on the festival, just keep working on the festival. You know, little side projects that I would, you know, love to do, animation related projects. You know, still pining for those. That doesn't help that, but
no, trust me, I know exactly what you mean. Like sometimes I'll like see, like I'll go and see a movie that or a video that really inspires me to create, and it's like, great, I'm gonna just write or like draw like as best I can something that I want to do, and I'll get back to it, and then months later I'm like, oh right, that was a thing I did. I should get back to it. I really like this idea. It's like I will get to it. It's just that life happens. But I think you're putting so much effort into the, you know, Annie is definitely going to be good in the long run for sure. Because I mean, obviously, going back to Cannes and doing all the work that you've been doing in order to get, you know, animators and employers connected is important.
Mm-hmm. It's so important. I mean, and honestly, yeah, it's so important, and there's such a need. I mean, we had talked about this previously, but you know, you know, that's another thing that we're kind of working on is doing more events for Annie Exchange. So we want to, you know, get people really talking about process and pipeline. We have a really quite extensive database of talent. That sounds so cold, but the you know, the reason we have this database is really, you know, for the greater good for all of XR and also traditional projects. You know, we're really trying to connect animators to projects, and we're, you know, working on that kind of all the time as well. So, but it's really important, and right now I think there's a real opportunity to really redraw the workflow pipeline, because you have to for a lot of these projects, and that's what people are doing. So, sort of what we want to do with Fest this year is definitely, we did this last year as well. We want to focus on it even more, is have even more discussion about, not only the importance of animation, including procedural animation, keyframe, motion capture, layered animation and motion capture, real-time tools.
Yes.
Like we want to talk, really focus on, the place, the role of the animator, and the animator as director, and talk about how we can incorporate animators early in the project pipeline, or talk to small studios and developers about their process now, and how they think, when they think those moments of collaboration should happen.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's like an ongoing mission that's really important, and I would say it's as important as our curation and programming. So those are our two kind of main prongs for Animation Nights New York, and yeah, it's exciting, and I feel like it's important,
It is. It's very important. And I don't know why this thought just came to me, so I hope I'm not derailing you a little bit here.
No, not at all.
It's important because it's something that recently dawned on me when I was, like, it was just a casual viewing experience, and it with a very, in this case, infamous film franchise that's by a blockbuster film franchise that unfortunately has nostalgic ties with me, which I'm still kind of checking.
Blockbuster? In. Totally.
Yeah, big blockbuster. But here's the thing. I know, because I realized when the trailers come out that this one particular film franchise was releasing a new movie that had an animator director, and I am referring to the release of Transformers Bumblebee.
Oh, gotcha.
with Travis Knight as the director, as opposed to the director that these movies have had for the longest time, who shall not be named because... No, I will not give him any credit on this podcast. I'm sorry. I'm not
bae.
I'm not there at all.
Rachel's bae.
Pardon my kindness, no. But and it's something, because for the longest time I looked at those trailers for that film coming. I'm like, no, I've been tricked too many times. There's no way I'm being drawn into like shit fests again. No matter how enticing it tries to make it seem, because I will admit, like, this trailer's like, this actually looks kind of good. No, it's a lie. It's not true. It's not real. But then reviews started coming out for it. It's like, oh, this is actually kind of good. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch. It's still a blockbuster, and it still has ties to the things that made it crap. But at the same time, there was like a lot more heart and soul that had ever been in this franchise before, at least on the big screen. And I'm like, okay, I'll rent it for a night and see how I like it. I'm not giving it the privilege of going to see it in the film theaters, because I'm still not sure what I'm getting myself into, but I'll go see it on, like, I'll rent it for a night. And it's amazing how much having an animator's perspective on certain aspects of a film can bring to it. Because, I mean, those movies for the longest, and then obviously since you've got huge CGI characters, you have to, animators have to be involved in one shape or form, or for basically the entire thing, because you have to animate these things. But there was so much care in detail in Travis's depiction as opposed to the other one. But I know this is probably coming off as really like, oh, I'm just a fan, I don't know the details of, like...
No, that's exactly my point. I mean, that's exactly my point. Like, so I would say, and I've said this actually quite a bit in the last couple of days, like, one of the best examples of animation in VR for me so far is Moss on PlayStation and Oculus, and honestly, like, there's so much love and care taken in the animation of Quill, the little Moss character, and also because you're in this game engine and you're interacting with the entire environment all of the time. You're part of it. You're part of the world. it just is awful when the little mouse, when she dies, and if like me, she dies like a lot. It's just horribly sad. But like, and part of it is really the animation. So the result of that is you feel empathy and you have replayability and you love the world and you love that little character, and that's why we featured that piece at Best of Fest, and why I totally wrote a fan email, the art director to initiate the conversation, because I said to him, like, I hope you realize what you have achieved here, because it really is something incredible, and there weren't just moments of interaction. It really felt it's a game, and again, like felt like you're part of a world. And not only that, but the story was really good, and the fact that the heroes are readers, and just there was a lot of time and love and care and testing that seemed to go into that piece, and they let the animators do their thing. I mean, maybe it's a simplistic way of sort of describing it, but I think I think what you're saying and what I'm saying is important for developers moving forward, especially in XR.
And especially when it comes to like the broad scope of animation in general, because I've noticed at least with a lot more people now, and when it depends on your market too, but I've noticed, at least in like paying attention to how things are going in like the world of Japanese animation, and how a lot of the problems that with that particular aspect of animation production, when it is done very poorly, it is recognizable. People who are consuming that media are now beginning to recognize it and the reasons why. Like, say, when you produce a show like that on a weekly basis, and then you turn out an episode comes out and the animation is really bad. Like, people are now becoming wise as to the reason why that is. It's not just money constraints. Right. It is the matter of they have this animation staff, obviously, depending on if you have like a very prolific or talented key animator, that definitely influences things, but time, all comes down to time, because I guarantee a lot of the shows that come out of that industry that produce, maybe not all episodes are like super worth talking about in terms of the fact that, oh, this had a really cool animated scene because a key animator was involved in this, but shows that are generally well animated, and those shows have had the time they've given their animators the time to really kind of get their work done, as opposed to those week by week people.
And the thing is, I think that not only do people have more of a critical eye, but I think that, I've said this before, like, I think that there's a certain sense of agency that you have when you put on the headset and you can sort of see all around you, or if you're holding something in the palm of your hand, and it gives you, there's even like more of a need to focus on quality animation. It's because you want it to be, you need it to be seamless.
Exactly, because otherwise you're out of the illusion, aren't you?
Yeah, you're creating an obstacle for people otherwise, and it's more important than ever. And the thing is, historically in the past, there are many times, let's just say, that, animators are sort of thought of later in the project. And I think that, especially, based on personal experience, working at least on some interactive projects, it's better to, interface early with the engineers and developers, because then you're maybe speaking a slightly different language, or at least have a slightly different approach towards things, and the earlier that can sort of be sorted out, the better for the entire project. And I feel that the earlier the animator is incorporated in the project, the better.
Well, yeah, because there's a certain experience that comes with bringing the animator that board? Like, just to make sure I'm clarifying here, how early are you defining as early in the project? Are you saying like in the conceptual stages?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is again just based on a few personal personal experiences based on for personal project, or sorry, I'm basing this on personal experience with a couple of commercial projects.
That's okay. We've been going for a while, so we'll wrap up soon. But I feel this is an important discussion that we should at least mention today before we sign off.
And and I found that working with the developer closely, working with the engineer closely, we were able to sort of find common ground and just cut through a lot of the regular back and forth that can happen. And also it's something that I sort of found it was interesting when we've connected some of our animators to judges, like the conversations, some of them between sort of like developers who are making things for, like, say, enterprise type projects, and people who are coming from more of a traditional CG approach toward projects. It's like sometimes the software will be different, they'll be using different software, and also sometimes their approach will be a little bit different. And so that's why my thought, at least so far based on the knowledge that I have, seems to point to early incorporation of the animators, instead of sort of like thinking of them last when you like need things to move. I really do think it's as simple as that. Now what we're doing right now to kind of move things forward is we're like I said, working with, in a casual way, talking to studios that we trust, who we know from the festival, and connecting them with different animators who've signed up for any exchange, and then we'll see what happens next. But the hope is that we can sort of find out, sort of test and find out what's working and what's not, what questions we need to ask and incorporate that we aren't, and then help people form their best help however we can to help studios form their best pipeline. And whatever people are willing to share with regard to those solutions,
well, yeah, because once you have a pipeline, once you know how things are going to progress and who has what, which hands touch the project at which point, and the building blocks laid down and then passing it along. But that's important stuff to have. That helps everything get sorted out better, which helps you save money.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I say all this with a little bit of hesitation, only because right now we're just it's sort of beginning stages, but people are sharing, people are sharing information right now, and that's what's exciting is that people are listening to one another and talking and trying to figure things out, and it's an exciting time.
It is. A lot of changes are on the horizon, especially with how, like, say, I'm really excited to see how three-dimensional animation will develop. I know after Spider-Verse was such a huge hit, and see how that, I know that was a very stylized film, but I know that we'll see how the reverberations of that film being a huge success in terms of what kind of animation, the animation style that they had for that film, and what else could be done with it, and how else you can tweak that. Could that be like in a VR related project? Who knows? We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what I would like to see, and this is another thing that I bring up with everyone who's sort of creating software, and I think there are some solutions that are sort of doing this. Actually, someone mentioned software called Pocket Studio, I believe, recently, and I went to the website, but it looks like it's like about to be launched. And then Tivori is trying to do some things with like rigs and animation within the VR space, I mean.
Okay.
But there's, a lot of limitations, although I think there are versions of that program that aren't necessarily available to the public. Anyway, I would like to see a stop motion studio in VR that's multi-user.
That's so cool.
You could have, motion capture that you do right there on the spot and then apply that to your character and then add layered animation on top of it.
Oh, that's wild.
Have, like instant translation for people who aren't speaking in the same language. Ooh. And, you could scale into the piece and scale out of the piece. And I just think that would be a really cool thing. And I bring it up.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not even like joking. I bring it up with every single, like developer that I meet who's like working within the VR space on, anything having to do with like motion capture and rigs and CG, because I just want to see that. I want to see that, and I want to play in it, and I want to have demos in it, and eventually participate myself, and yeah, it would be cool. So
it was only a matter of a couple years that we would ever thought like, let's take a phone call on our wristwatch. And
yeah, totally.
That's what we can do now.
Exactly.
So it's only a matter of time and the right people, the right minds getting together, discussing and figuring out what does work and what doesn't work.
Exactly. And the whole thing, as long as we can sort of encourage people to talk to one another, and which is what we're, it's part of what Dust Fest is about, and part of what these exchange events are about. So. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll I know we'll both be doing our part.
Absolutely. That's a pie that I'd like a piece of if I better analogy. If for no other reason, just so that when the thing comes out, I can participate in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Money be damned. I just want to play it.
Exactly. That's awesome.
Great. But thank you so much, Yvonne, for coming on and sharing all this with us, because this is awesome to hear what Annie's doing, and especially with and then hearing your experiences in Tribeca too is really neat. Like all these sorts and these VR bits look so cool.
Oh man, it's really exciting. I mean, honestly, like I have realized how much I love festivals. I know you're the same way. Like conventions and festivals are just the best. I mean, there's just you feel so charged up. I mean, as they are, it's just like everyone comes together for the same kind of. You just feel like you're meeting, your tribe of diverse people from all around the world.
I like that word. It's like your tribe, your people, your squad.
They just happen to be from everywhere. Yeah,
like there's a lot more people like me than I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Really, really cool. Yeah, well, I'll be back there this full week, and then I'm off to Cannes, and I know we'll probably be speaking I'll be speaking to you from there, most likely.
Yeah, most likely, but we'll keep in touch, and we'll make sure that we figure out when that will be, and I'll make sure that everyone who's listening right now who's interested to hear that conversation will let you know when that episode will be taking place, once we've got it recorded in the bag there.
Wonderful.
Yep. So everyone, if thank you so much for tuning in today. It was a really awesome episode, and if obviously you want to reach out to Yvonne, we want to see what social media or what other contact information she'd like to use. So where can you be reached, Yvonne?
So I am on Twitter at isnare_inc. And if you would like to submit a film to Animation Nights New York, you can go to www.animationnights.com. Do you need the www? It's hard to say. I don't even know if you need it. Animationnights.com. And we are in Film Freeway, so project submission is free, and we have rolling deadlines. And if you're in the New York City area, we are doing monthly screening events, free admission at the Gutter Spare Room in Williamsburg. It is a 21 and over venue, so sorry everyone who's not 21. But yeah, I encourage you to come to those as well. But otherwise, yeah, just we'll have more announcements on the site. This upcoming screening, we will be showing our Annie Can program here in Brooklyn and in France, in Cannes.
Very nice.
Yeah. And also the Annie Exchange info is on the website too. So if you want to sign up for that, please do. It'll take a beat for us to get back to you, most likely, but just know that you'll be on that database. So.
Very good. Yeah, that's very important information. So thank you for sharing that with us. So if you want to tune in with other episodes of the AFA podcast, if you're on the website, you can navigate already on the Animation for Adults website. You can navigate to some of our other cool episodes, such as our 100th episode anniversary of Akira and talking about Princess Mononoke, Ponyo. We have a bunch of really cool episodes of all these really neat animated films, popular and even some obscure ones too. So you can just navigate there on the website, or you can, if you're using a different podcast, we're on Podbean, podcast.com, Stitcher, and I think that's the last one. I think if I get to, I know Podbean is a recent addition.
Awesome. Yeah, I've not heard of that one. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And let me see, if you want to follow us on any forms of social media, because we're on a bunch of different platforms. We're on Facebook at AFA Blog. We're on Twitter at AFA Blog. And we're also on Pinterest, Instagram, and Tumblr, though. I think the ones you'll see the most updates, especially the up-to-date updates on what we're doing, will either be on Facebook or Twitter. Those are the ones that we primarily focus on and making sure we get out content to and updates of what content's coming up. So keep your eyes peeled for that, for upcoming episodes of the podcast, as well as new news, reviews, what have you. I know we just recently had the release when we went out for the PlayStation, the early access Dreams video game experience went out early a little while ago, which I believe is all sold out at this time. But if you want to talk about video games and animation and how to use another tool for that this sounds like a very promising piece of technology. So I would say if you're ever even a little bit curious about trying to make a video game of your own from a PlayStation 4 platform, keep an eye on that and that's how that develops.
So exciting.
All right, I think that should be. Oh, I almost forgot to do my own social media.
Oh my goodness!
Me forget to advertise myself? What? If you want to follow me personally, I am also primarily on Twitter at Fail2Ninja is my my internet handle there. So you can just follow me on there. And if you want to submit a potential topic for us to discuss here, whether it's relating to certain aspects of animation, like acting and animation, which we have covered before with one of our awesome listeners, Ed Hooks. If he's listening, we love you. Acting animation, what we've discussed here, the importance of animators early on in the production pipeline, or even just like, there's a movie that we have yet to cover that you really want us to talk about. Just go ahead and submit an email to us. That is podcast@animationforadults.com. And we will definitely get back to you and look and see where we can include that in our schedule. But until then, well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to having you join us for the next episode of the AFA podcast. Have a great time, guys. Take care.
Hooray. Good night.
Good night.